speaking of cares, I would like to call up Nicholas next. Nicholas, I could introduce you, but you'll do a better job. Go for it.
Sure. Thanks, Danny. Nicholas Sandström. I'm co-founder of a few companies, Kazaa, which is file sharing software, Skype, which is internet communications, internet telephony, if you like, and also now latest venture is Juiced, which is trying to combine TV and the internet. So if I just think about the theme here, serial entrepreneurships and what does that mean, I think that it's about always have a drive to want to change something. For me, it has never been about trying to make money on something or to create a big company, but it's always about changing something, changing the status quo, changing things to the better. And I think people probably have different motivations, but what's been working for me is just this whole thing about wanting to change something. And to me, it's like I see that like every day, things that just could be done better. And it's about just focusing on very, very basic, very simple problems that in life, and then just like still just say that very simple propositions to a lot of consumers has a big impact. So, for example, wouldn't it be great if you have a software that allows anyone to share videos and music and pictures on the internet? It sounds like a very basic thing to do. And if you can do that right, you can probably get like a few 100 million people using that service. If you can enable anyone to talk for free all around the world with great quality and don't have to pay the telephone bills, sounds like a simple proposition if you get it to work. And if it works, you can probably get hundreds of millions of people to use those services. So all those things are being driven by, for myself, a desire both as a consumer. I get frustrated. Why do I have to pay this stupid telephone bill all the time? Why is it difficult to share files with each other? And when I watch TV, why is it that like when I turn on the TV that I have to wait for a program to start? Why can't I watch whatever I want, whenever I want? It's such a simple problem. So then, so I think as an entrepreneur, what you said, okay, how can you solve that problem? And by the way, can you create a business out of it? But usually it's all about solving the problem, and if you can solve the problem for a lot of people, you can probably find a great business model from it. And this is the typical thing that you hear about, like when many entrepreneurs, specifically in the technology field, they don't have a business model. Google didn't have a business model. You can argue Skype didn't have a business model, but actually that's actually on the internet. It pretty much always works if you can create a large user base, something that is very, very popular, something that's driven by people recommending the service to each other, so you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars or pounds to acquire new customers. You can probably find business models. But the point I want to make here is that as an entrepreneur, you don't really care about having the perfect plan for 5 years and doing discounted cash flow models. You think about solving the problem, and then you have you're believing that you will probably figure it out along the way. And I think one of the things that's significant for many successful entrepreneurs, they deal with imperfect information and they believe something in their gut. And you probably hear, I heard that so many times, both when we started Kazaa and when we started Skype, that this will not work. I mean, we took 1 year for Skype to close its first financing. People said, no, internet telephony doesn't work. We tried before. And why do you want to use this peer-to-peer technology for this? It probably won't work. What will the phone companies do? What about Microsoft? If Microsoft is doing this, they're not going to kill you. So you have all these different people, tell you all these different problems why it cannot happen. But as an entrepreneur, you don't care about those things because you say it probably is an opportunity. It can happen, and you need to be the one who believes it can happen. And you recruit people, and it's very difficult. But you have to always be the one who always are believing in it, into the big round. But as one of the things we heard in the video role before, it's about never giving up. as an entrepreneur, there's so many mistakes, but you should not be afraid of making mistakes. And when you make mistakes, take them as a learning and just move on and never give up. And finally, I think about, entrepreneurship is also about having it's not about a different type of work. It's a lifestyle. So it defines who you are, and it's something that you do from when you wake up till you fall asleep. And you probably dream about it and process it during the night. And vacations is not as important as when you have a job, because you're so much passionate about it. And it's actually it's great fun, because if you think about, if you can do what you love to do every day, say that you're playing golf, if you can play golf all day, that would be pretty good. Well, if you love building businesses and changing things around you, that's what you can do as an entrepreneur. So it's about having a great deal of fun.
Great. Thanks, Nicholas. Come join me. One of the things that is different about your past, in fact, is that you worked for a big company. You worked at Teletoon. In fact, Janus did as well. I think for you, right?
Yes, I hired him.
You hired him. So I guess I'd like to know how that works, because you don't typically see entrepreneurs working for big companies. And now, in fact, you're running a division of a big company.
Yeah, I'm working for a big company now. So I think the typical picture of an entrepreneur is the one who drops out of university, cannot get a job, and just build their own businesses. So for me, it was a bit different. I actually completed university, and I worked for a company for many years. But in that company was very entrepreneurial, so I got an opportunity to become very much an entrepreneur within that company. But when I started to work in 91, I thought that like an entrepreneur, I was come from Sweden, so entrepreneur was someone who was building something, doing constructions. You call it's an entrepreneur. It didn't really exist. Venture capital did not exist. It was completely unheard. It wasn't until, we didn't really get that until the later part of the 90s. So for me, it wasn't very much that opportunity.
And in terms of sort of role models, were there folks that you thought about?
I think there's maybe never been like one specific role model. I think there are several different people you can take as role models. Like Still just mentioned Ingvar Kamprad, who's like a great entrepreneur in Sweden. He started with building furniture and thought that people can do a little bit of work themselves. He's a fantastic role model because he's someone who's like very passionate what he's doing. He's also someone who's completely focused on the end user, the user experience, and the difference he can make towards his customers.
So, tell us a little bit more about Juice, because folks have been asking, how does Juice compare to YouTube? How did the idea come about? How are you involved in the fact that you're also running Skype?
Yeah. So this is like this funny part about that. It's very difficult to sit still. So many people will think that we were successful. We sold Skype to eBay for a bunch of money, and then I was continuing to work. I kept staying on as a CEO, which was part of the deal. But it's very difficult to just sit still and not have your creative creative mind and do things. So Janus and I, we wanted to continue to develop new business ideas and opportunities. So Juice was actually something that we started. The idea came many years ago. Actually, even back when we started Casal, we thought, music seemed to be working online. So what could be the next opportunity? Video, TV. But it was just way too early. So we never got around to build that. So we basically launched the business beginning of last year. And so this time, I'm not the person actually building it. I'm the one who sits on I'm the coach on the bench and cheerleading and I had the opportunity to put in money and to help the company get started. But I'm not as active involved. But Janus is very much involved.
So how is that to be on the bench? Because an entrepreneur, as we were talking about, you sort of want to roll up your sleeves and get involved on your own.
It's much more fun to do things. That's for sure. So,
yeah.
Well, it's also fun for me it's been a great opportunity because we have people who we're working with so Frederick, who's building a company, he's been working with me for many years, so it's quite good to just to leverage your experience and to work with someone. It's also kind of nice not always to have to do all the heavy lifting, because it's quite tiring.
So I have a pretty funny anecdote that I was thinking about. So Index, we're investors in Skype, and I remember that Nicholas and I would have regular meetings, and as Skype was taking off, it was pretty clear that it was sort of explosive growth. That I hadn't seen this in a long time. There was sort of Hotmail and Netscape and ICQ. I think Yossi's he's probably up there. No, Yossi, he's probably not in here. And I just remember that as this exponential growth was really kicking in, I'd have these meetings with Nicholas, and we kept on getting offers to buy the company. And the first one kicked in, and it was $500 million. I'm like, Nicholas, should we be looking at this or not? No. 6 months later, it was $1 billion. Nicholas, starting to be pretty interesting. No, not at all interested. $1.5 billion, no, $2 billion. Okay, so you get the idea. And it eventually got sold for $4.1 billion, of which just over half was up front. But what was fascinating from my perspective is, VCs get a lot of criticism about the fact from their entrepreneurs that we have a portfolio approach versus, you don't have to nod, versus the entrepreneur who has everything committed in this one venture. And in the case of Nicholas and Janus, this really, Kazaa was a tremendous success in terms of exponential growth, but I think that was the money loser, it's fair to say, for you. You ended up writing some pretty significant checks to the labels. So what fascinates me is this notion, when did you decide, okay, it was worth selling at this point? Because we could have probably come back 6 months later and said, okay, now it's $6 billion.
Yeah. This is actually a very important point, because there is this situation where the investors at VC have a portfolio, but the entrepreneur is like, bets everything. When we started, building Kazaa, we didn't raise money. I put in my savings into it, and we converted my living room to office. Janus moved into our flat, and got rid of this apartment. So we really we bet the farm on our businesses. So of course you have a desire to money is more hand is more important than the potential in the future. But what's important, I think, is to build a company to last, not to build something to sell. People who build a company to sell, they don't end up being very successful. They could be, of course, but normally the ones who become really successful are the ones who don't have any thought about selling. Companies are not being sold, being acquired. So in our mind, it was never about selling Skype. We wanted to build it for a long term. I think that was also reflected in it and said, well, we can take part of the payment up front, but we want to continue to build the company because we still believe in it, and we have so much more that we want to do with it. So, that was a pretty good arrangement that we came up with. And also, we also had a situation that, some of our investors were probably keen to sell earlier, and some others actually didn't want to sell at all because they wanted to just hang on for even bigger opportunities.
So, do you think that the way that eBay has actually handled the fact that they've, as you said, that you haven't sold the company, it's been acquired, and it's managed separately, you guys obviously have a lot of latitude. Do you think that's sort of an example of what's going to come in the future when companies get acquired?
I think it depends on what it is. With Skype and eBay was about for eBay to expand into one more segment on the internet. So now with Skype, eBay are the leader in commerce, financial transactions, and communication. With basically three of the 5 big areas on the internet. The others being finance and entertainment. So in that way, that it was very well worked very well with keeping Skype as a very independent business unit. Other times, if you have a company like say Cisco, for example, when they've been acquiring companies, it's been very much about acquiring technology that gets integrated into their core product lines, and that in those cases, you 1 or 2 years after a company being acquired, you don't see it anymore. But for us, For us, it's all about continuing the trajectory momentum of Skype and not killing that by integrating this into eBay, because Skype and eBay were very different cycles or phases in the life cycle. But the other thing I think was very smart of Meg Whitman was that she recognized that James and I, we were entrepreneurs and we probably couldn't sit still and just do our work. We wanted to be able to do other things, so she gave us a level of freedom to do that, and that doesn't work really well because we can still be able to focus on building Skype or we can do other things in Skype.
Okay. I would like you not to tell the audience everything you've told me about the next opportunities. But what are some of the
You should have heard what I told the other VCs.
I knew it. What are some of the things that you find interesting in terms of new areas?
Yeah. Well, I think that first of all, the thing that is interesting is that I think we will see the next. If you think back, it was like 10, 12 years since like the commercial internet kind of really kicked in with like basically around 95. So it's been about 10 years. But I think the next 10 years is going to be more interesting because now we actually have the infrastructure in place. We have so many hundreds of million people who are online, broadband connections, wireless broadband connections. The infrastructure is there. So, Skype was growing really, really fast. Then it was YouTube growing probably even faster. And then we're always going to have, you also showed this on graph, something that he has invested in is growing faster than Skype, of course. So there's always these things where the next thing is going to go faster. So I think the beautiful thing is that you're probably not going to be able to predict which is the next big thing. And that I think is the beautiful thing with internet. It's also very difficult to tell exactly what it is. But I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot. Anything that can be. There are two things. One thing like existing industries, like communications, television. It's obvious that television will be, transformed over the internet because it's just going to be so much better. So, and then you can think about other things, like maybe probably, financial transactions is probably a long way to go. There has been a lot of things that happened with financial transactions online many years back with e-trade and online banking, but still use web front ends to a very big and inefficient back end. So that potentially, financial transactions could be, much more, could be a big thing. And then you have, but then
I think that's enough for now, by the way. I don't want you to tell them everything. They can ask later. No, thanks a lot, Nicholas.